Hi, this is Seth, also known as Beer Nut One. Been listening to Night of the Horrophile and enjoying some good horror movies. Have fun.
You want burgers, hot dogs, some chicken, and ribs? Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
So we have got to start perusing our local art house more commonly. That was fun.
Yeah. It was fun.
Did you not care for it? Well, okay, normally you'd be going there to see a movie is what I was saying. I think ticket prices are about around $11, which isn't bad when you consider that our art house in Tulsa, Oklahoma is the Circle Cinema, and it's a nonprofit place. So
right.
Basically,
right.
they're open to show the movies that you won't see on the main screens in your
Right.
multiplexes. So, like, they're showing The Irishman, which is Scorsese's new picture coming out. So, yeah, we should start getting over there every now and then.
I think so too.
David, the guy who runs it, he does or doesn't run the whole thing, but he runs the graveyard shift section of it, and they do all night horror marathons during certain times. Yeah, and they show Candyman, and they're showing the 35mm print of or the 4K restoration of Evil Dead and stuff. Anyway, Circle Cinema. we're just hitting it back, but we're not talking about theaters here because this is Night of the Horrophile. Welcome everybody. If this is your first show, this is a weird episode to jump in on, so you might want to go check out our other shows before you get on this, because this episode.
Oh, I'm being loud. I'm so sorry.
I'm getting into things. Anyway, this episode, unlike our normal episodes are me showing my wife a movie and making her watch it all the way through, and then talk about it for 2.5 hours almost. So anyway. Not today, though. Today is casual horror. That's right. I don't have any beer, sadly. But, we'll light up a cigarette after we're done, and we'll call it a day.
After we're done?
Well, yeah,
I was thinking, like, right now.
Casual horror is a play on... All right, whatever. Anywho.
Oh, okay.
So today, on Casual Horror, is our tribute to Joe Bob Briggs. That's right. And our Drive-In Mutants out there, the MutantFam, as they call it, #MutantFam on Twitter.
Did you say hashtag?
Every time I say fam, I feel a little weird. I kind of want to go along with Joe Bob's mutant army thing, but whatever. We'll go with MutantFam. So I thought, because this episode, we're going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to go into an interview I did, which our future interviews, I'd like to figure out how we can both sit in on them. I haven't worked that out yet, but I did an interview with the gratuitous blogger over at joebobbriggs.net, Laura Beerman. And she sat down and we talked about Joe Bob, we talked about horror and just stuff like that. So basically, you get an interview from a true MutantFam member here, and it's going to be great. So stick around for that. But first of all, we'd like to pay a little tribute to the man himself. Recently, we discussed the Circle Cinema at the top of the show because we caught How Rednecks Saved Hollywood, the Joe Bob Briggs one-man show he has touring around. And I loved it.
It was great.
That thing, it runs about 2.5 hours, and it didn't feel like that. I wanted more.
Oh,
It
yeah.
felt short, and then I was like, wait, no, we've been here a while.
Yeah.
No, he had a meet and greet before and after. Our before meet and greet was just with Joe Bob. And, I'd always said, if he ever came through town, I always said it on Twitter, and I was like, well, I promised. I always said that if he came through town and buy him a drink, well, he's busy. He's not going to sit down and have a drink with me, or at least I didn't think so. But, I went ahead and just got him a whole bottle.
Then he can have a few drinks.
There you go. Then he can drink at his leisure. But and that was great. He signed my I spit on. I'm getting shaky just thinking. He signed my I Spit on Your Grave DVD, which is his first, like he said. I didn't know that. It was his first commentary he ever did. So he signed that for me. And then he signed our Joe Bob Briggs fanzine. And then at the after meet and greet,
we got to meet Darcy.
Yeah, we got to meet Darcy, who was shy as ever. And that's...
Oh, very much so.
She's very shy. Just kind of like us, though. It was funny because we were like...
We're nervous.
Yeah, we were. Her and us were both nervous as hell, and it was really funny. So there was a pause, and then she was like, "I think I know you from Twitter." And then that went from there.
It was funny because I'm pretty sure we were like fifth in line or something like that for the after, and I asked her to sign the book, and she was just like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I can do that." She didn't even have a marker, so nobody else asked her.
No.
And I was like...
It's like, of course we want you to sign things.
Right?
You know, the crowd there was super warm. I think a lot of them didn't exactly know what they were getting into. Not a lot of them. That's mean. The crowd was actually really great.
I figured... I kind of figured out that if there was a couple, there was one that was there just to support the person that liked Joe Bob.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I wanted to kick him in the back of the head like a couple of times. Well, he kept like getting mad and bored, and I was like, "Then leave, man." Anyway, that's besides the point. We're not going to hate on the audience, but yeah, it was a great show. What did you think about the show itself?
I liked it a lot. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, really?
I don't know what I expected.
I was going to say, what did you expect? Because you've watched a few. You can't. We've talked about this on our other episodes. Brittany cannot sit through a movie, so to sit through. With the Joe Bob commentaries on the last drive-in, I think that makes maybe an hour and 50-minute movie last about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Something.
Yeah, a long time.
So it's a little much for her to sit through, which is fine. I forgive her. I think I posted a Twitter picture of you falling asleep during the Hootenanny.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That was great.
Well, and I have a hard time also, like, not only at home, and we've talked about it a couple of times, but also... had troubles in the movie theater.
Now, the only movie I've sat through with you and you've fallen asleep to, and we haven't been to the movies very often because of the price, was Batman versus Superman.
Okay.
And you fell asleep in the first 10 minutes, which that's fine.
But it was like a midnight showing or something like that.
Went late.
It was
By the time we got out of there, it was like 2 a.m.
And at that time, Moose was a baby.
Oh, yeah.
He was like
just dating, I think.
He was like 6 months old. So I was still waking up in the middle of the night giving him bottles.
Yeah.
So midnight was really late for me.
Right. So, yeah. So it's a little bit much to ask me to do. But, no, you seem to really like it. You were laughing along with us all.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, I loved it. But yeah, the show itself was amazing. I loved it. And especially being we're from the South.
Right.
It really resonated with us. It was great.
Oh yeah, the hillbillies and the rednecks and all that. If
any listeners haven't seen it yet and it's coming through your town, I think their last performance of 2019 is actually coming up soon. But if he ever comes through your town, you've got to go see it because it's great. It's like one part comedy show, one part film history class, and another part like history lesson because he talks. But
not a boring history lesson.
No, it's not at all, and it's great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I totally agree with the whole. You're either a Forrest Gump person or a Sling Blade person.
I don't agree.
Okay, but I like both the movies, but I do agree Sling Blade's the better movie.
Maybe, but I like them both.
See, I like them both, but like I said, I do agree that Sling Blade's the better movie. Because Forrest Gump is just a fairy tale.
It is a romance.
I mean, even the whole life is like a box of chocolates thing. And you never know what you're going to get. Of course you do. Look at the back of the box.
On only some of them, though. Not all of them.
Pretty much all of them. They all have little cards. Look on the inside.
Not
of
always.
The box. Are you talking about those shitty Russell Stover's chocolates?
I don't know.
Anyway, this is not about chocolate. So, like I said, we're going to pay a little tribute. So I'm just going to go through the reason why in line I was shaking and sweating.
He seriously was. Shaking and sweating and pacing.
You would have thought I was meeting, what's a big celebrity nowadays? All the celebrities that are
Burt
big to me are
Reynolds.
not big to...
Burt Reynolds.
He's not now.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah. You would have thought I was meeting not the president. Ooh.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, there you go. Or just someone. It was amazing because, God, that was scary. And this is why. So I first found out about Joe Bob back in the 90s. I can't remember dates very well because this was a long time ago. I had to have been like 10 or 11. And it was either 96 or 97. But I lived across the street from one of my friends, Brandon. Now, I've talked about in our past shows how my whole family were horror addicts. So we watched nothing but horror movies. Now, most of those movies were all slashers, though. So I would go over to Brandon sometimes at night when my parents knew. And one of those nights that I got to go over there and sleep over was a Saturday night, or was it a Friday night? I don't remember. And we'll get into it. But I went over there, and his brother was turning on a show called Monster Vision. Now, both me and Brandon didn't know anything about this. I didn't have cable.
Sorry. Was it a show or a television channel?
No, it was a show.
Okay, because from
TNT was the channel.
Oh, okay. That's what I
Right.
was going to ask because, I mean, I've heard people talk about Monster
Yeah.
Vision. You've talked about Monster Vision, but I thought, in my brain, I made it into a station.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, no, it wasn't a station, but his brother told us, he was watching Monster Vision, and he told us about how how it used to be Penn and Teller, and me and Brandon both knew Penn and Teller from their magic acts. We seen them on TV and stuff like that. I loved magic when I was little, but so we both kind of were familiar. And he said it's great. They play scary movies, and and the person talks about it. And this guy's is Joe Bob. He's the new host, which I guess recently, I don't remember what year, he had taken over recently.
Oh, so Penn and Teller were the hosts before. You
right.
didn't specify that. You were just like, there's Penn and
sorry.
Teller.
I'm just rattling on.
I was like, wait, what?
Penn and Teller were there, by the way.
I was like, what? Okay, you're just telling the story about Penn and Teller. I'm confused.
Anyway.
No, so they hosted it.
They hosted before.
And then Joe Bob.
Yeah. And so that's how I was introduced to Joe Bob, is through that. And like I said, I don't remember what movie. I don't remember what episode. I just remember watching this with my friend Brandon and his older brother, watching this guy just talk about horror movies like they were a thing, though. And being from Oklahoma, here's a guy with a southern accent from Texas and stuff, so he's relatable.
Right.
Because I grew up around people who acted like this. And so it was great. I'm sitting there listening, and someone's telling me it's okay to like these horror movies. It's okay to like these really crappy movies that most people would consider shit.
Right.
So it was slashers from my parents mostly. And then with Joe Bob and Monster Vision, and we caught this like whenever it was on. It was hard to tell because I kept changing the schedule. Fridays, and then it was Saturdays, and off and on. But we caught it as much as we could, and that's kind of where this all began with me. So that's where all this began. Well, it was on and off. Sometimes I would sneak over to Brandon's house to watch Monster Vision and stuff because my parents told me no, so I would sneak out of the house.
Did your parents ever really tell you no, though?
They told me no, but then I told my mom, and she was like, "You did?" And then my dad was like, "I knew." He was like, "You're just going over to your friends to watch scary movies across the street." I didn't fucking give a shit.
But the thing is, did they really tell you no?
Probably not. My parents spoiled the shit out of me.
You probably were too scared to ask because you gotten in trouble for something else earlier in the day.
That's probably how it happened. Again, my memory is not good.
But the reason I know this is because your mom spoiled the shit out of you. And you should have got spanked a little more.
Probably. Thank you, Mom. So So caught Monster Vision as much as we could. Flash forward, I think Joe Bob was off the air by like 2000. I didn't know very much because I had moved away from the neighborhood.
Oh, sad.
And we still didn't have cable at the time. We didn't get cable till like 2003 or 2004. Way into the 2000s.
Way into it.
Yeah.
We're 20 years into
okay,
the
sorry.
2000s.
Way into the early aughts, as they call it. But, so flash forward to then, and, I kind of heard murmurs, Joe Bob's off the air and stuff. I was like, oh, shit, we just got cable. What the fuck? And this is before the internet's a huge thing. So, around this time, I think it was 2004, 2005, I really started looking into it because I was like, what happened to Monster Vision? Because by that time, we have cable and TNT's a piece of shit at the time. Thanks, Ted Turner. But...
Okay, tell us how you really feel.
Cable can suck my dick. But, so I start researching him, really looking him up, seeing who it was. And, I found out about before Monster Vision, his hosting duties on Monster Vision, I found out about the Drive-In, the show he had before then, which I've showed you that. It's like a baby Joe Bob.
Yes.
Really young.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I found out, he did stuff before that, even before that. And then I found out about his writing career. And then I found out about John Bloom. John Irving Bloom is Joe Bob.
Oh.
Right.
You're looking at me like, yeah,
you know this.
Who I'm talking
No, you don't
about.
know this, actually.
And I'm
That's why we're talking about it. But, so, now to really go into John Irving Bloom first, I'll have to explain horror hosts. So horror hosts are kind of they're a damn dying breed nowadays. There's still a bunch of them left, but not very many. Not as many as there used to be.
You said a bunch, and then you're like, oh, not really.
Well, I say a bunch like you can count them on your hands, mostly the well-known ones. But you have like Ghilardi, I believe. I can't pronounce things. We know this. Ghilardi. You have Svengoolie. You have Elvira. Then you have Joe Bob and... Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know other than that. Because most of these people, these horror hosts were local people. Like your local channels and stuff like that. And now they've gone over to streaming and stuff like that. Well, so mostly what these horror host people are, it's their alter ego is an extension of them.
Right.
It's not them acting as someone else. It's an exaggeration of them. Right. And that's what Joe Bob is to John Bloom. It's an exaggeration of John Bloom. Right. So it's still John Bloom. It's kind of difficult.
No, I understand. Yeah.
It's not a TV character. Right. That's what I'm saying. So nobody get their bubbles burst. His name really isn't Joe Bob Briggs.
But you mean Elvira is not? No, she doesn't dress like that every day?
No, not every day.
And her name is not Elvira?
Here's another thing. They probably would if they could.
If society allowed it. Well, in 2019, they do.
They actually do. I mean, and John Bloom did later on. But so Bloom was born in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
To Thelma Louise and Rudolph Lewis Bloom. So he's Texas native, obviously. He was raised in Little Rock, Arkansas, and attended the Vanderbilt University. And he attended that on a sports writing scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So not only, he has a degree in English and stuff like that. He's a graduate of college and stuff like that. And the thing is, he started out as a writer.
Obviously.
That's what, obviously. So it was during the 80s when he came up with the Joe Bob persona for a newspaper where he was going to write articles about drive-in movies. He was going to review the movies and stuff like that. And I could, with most of the stuff I get rattling on, I'm going to skip over because I could literally do a whole podcast about this.
Oh my God.
So with most stuff I know, I need to condense it. So he he started the persona during the paper, and what they were going for was something to go along with the movies he was reviewing, because he did like the drive-in movies. He calls them, like I do, like the exploitation movies over B movies, because that hints that there's an A movie. But again, well, I went in there on another episode, but so he came up with like at one point, and I might be saying this wrong, but so the persona he was going to come up with, he wanted it ambiguous sounding. He came up with the name Bubba Rodriguez at first, but that's
weird.
Sounds a little racist, is what they told him. So he came up.
It didn't even come across that way to me. I know. And then you said that, and I was like, oh, okay,
yeah,
maybe.
it kind of does. But then he said, in his own words, he said, he came up with the widest name he could think of, and Joe Bob Briggs was born.
The widest name. Oh my gosh.
So he started writing these reviews in the Dallas Times and a few other papers and stuff like that. He did the reviews of the movies and stuff in the papers. And moving on forward, he got the show, his drive-in show and stuff like that, and the rest is history. Again, gotta condense it for the show. We have an interview coming up.
Good.
But he, like I said, he wrote some great books, and some of his other books are actually collections of his movie reviews.
Oh yeah.
And stuff. But there is an awesome book that I have actually read when I started getting into his writings and stuff, and the man himself, John Bloom, which I've always respected him, because here's a guy who's pretty much done it all, like I'm about to get into. So with his books, Evidence of Love, A True Story of Passion and Death in the Suburbs, it was about a high-profile murder and stuff. Go look that up. That's an amazing book.
I want to read that.
Yeah, it's good. He started off as an investigative journalist too. Oh, like go look him up. You'll learn a lot that I don't have 5 hours to tell you about. But he did Joe Bob Goes to the Drive-In. That's a collection. A Guide to Western Civilization, or My Story, which I haven't been able to find. Uh-oh. So if anybody can find that for me, let me know. I think that's a biography, autobiography. Anyway, maybe. I don't know. Then he did Joe Bob Goes Back to the Drive-In, The Cosmic Wisdom of Joe Bob Briggs, Iron Joe Bob, Profoundly Disturbing.
Wait, go back.
Iron Joe Bob? Mm-hmm. Iron? Yeah.
Iron?
I wonder, while writing that title, because I was like, some idiot's going to pronounce iron wrong. This is going to be fun.
No, you're the only one that pronounces it wrong.
Does somebody tweet us? Am I the only one? Anyway, profoundly disturbing, shocking movies that changed history, profoundly erotic, sexy movies that changed history, and Eccentric Orbits, the Iridium story from 2016. Now, I haven't read Eccentric Orbits, but I was really curious about it, so I looked it up. Man, it's fascinating. It's shit they should have taught us in school. The Iridium phone. The satellite phone. It's about the constellation, the satellite constellation that Motorola almost shut down and nobody wanted, but it's something that changes pretty much every walk of life for soldiers and stuff like that. And I am rattling on, but it's very fascinating. Go look up his, if you haven't read the book or can't get a hold of the book, go watch his Google Talk. That was amazing. His talk about that. So pretty much, like I kind of taught you a little bit of his writing career and stuff, but we haven't really talked, besides that, the TV shows and the horror hosting shows that you know of.
Right.
We haven't talked much about his movie career.
What?
That's right. So in film, in 1986, his first movie appearance was, that I know of, was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Which we are going to get to next year. His scene is deleted, but I have the version with the scene and the bonus features, where he's a gonzo moviegoer. Basically, it flashes to Joe Bob. He's like, he says something fucking witty, and then it cuts away, and it's like, whoa.
Wow, he's a movie star.
So then he was Dewey Daddy-O Phillips in Great Balls of Fire in 1989, the show about Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee.
I know nothing.
So, Great Balls of Fire, he was in that. And then he was in 1994, friend of the show, apparently, because he keeps coming up. Mick Garris's The Stand, the Stephen King adaptation, the miniseries. He was, and story has it, they did not name this character after Joe Bob, but his name on the movie is Deputy Joe Bob Brentwood.
That's close, though.
I know. 1995, Casino, he pops up. And I remember watching Casino one time, and I was like, is that fucking Joe Bob? And here he is as Don Ward, the, inept, the guy arranging the fucking floor that Robert De Niro fires his ass. And it sends a whole tailspin of shit going down. Go watch Casino, everybody. God, I'm trying really hard not to rattle off needless facts. 1997, he was in Face Off as a shock technician. It's kind of a real quick role. I don't know why he's in that movie. I've never heard any stories. 99, he's in The Storytellers as Scrappy the janitor. 2004, All That You Love Will Be Carried Away. I've never seen that movie. Alfie Zimmer. 2006, Evil Ever After as Marvin. Ghost of Goldfield as Clancy. This is all in 2007 here. Hogzilla, which we all want to fucking see.
Do we?
On the show, yeah.
Oh, okay.
As Andy McGraw. Rapturous as Doctor. And Wretched as Eric. 2012, he was in The Sleeper as as a character called Dr. Briggs.
Okay.
2016, The Ghost of Johnson Woods as Warren. And 2019, In Search of Darkness as himself, which In Search of Darkness is really awesome documentary about 80s films that we have got to track down and buy. But moving on over to television.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. 1980, he was in Hello Larry as Big Guy in one episode. 1986, The Ed Bush Show. Don't know what that is, actually. He was as himself, so I'm assuming he pops up in some kind of local show. 88, Hooperman. He was in one episode of that. 1993 and 1994, he appeared on Married with Children.
What?
As Billy Ray Wetnap. He's like a salesman. It's awesome. I'll have to track down those episodes and show them to you. 1994, obviously, The Stand counts as television too. But boy, I'm getting like two to the T with this. But in 2018, through the present, obviously, the man rose again and gave us the last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, which we continue to watch religiously like it's church. And
hallelujah.
Praise the Lord. But so I see him as a hero right underneath my dad. Obviously, my dad's my number one hero. And then there's Joe Bob. And the reason why is because he was present during those formative years of my horror knowledge and stuff like that. And even my knowledge of films and stuff. It really kicked off and got me going into reading about movies and learning as much as I could. And it's just fascinating because Joe Bob doesn't say anything that John Bloom doesn't believe or doesn't think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the person we get.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just fascinating. It's just in an exaggerated way. Kind of.
Right. An excuse to come out of your shell.
Right. I love it. And meeting him was, my God, that was amazing. It's like, because I've gone through, like I said, early on in my life, I was a horror buff and stuff. And then I went through a real dark period where I didn't know where the fuck I was going to end up. Like everybody does. Everybody goes through that period. Then there was drinking too much. And then there was there was just a period. There's all sorts of depression and one suicide attempt at one point, which I talk about candidly because honestly, if you're out there and you're having mental issues and stuff, you need to talk about it. It's good to talk about. It's good to find someone to talk to about.
Definitely, for sure.
Don't keep it to yourself.
Do not.
Because that's what I did, and I ended up in a dark place. I'm not going to go into. But then when I met you, you actually seem to care about what I had to talk about.
Yes, as much as you annoy me and go on and on sometimes, at least I'm letting you go on, and I'm engaging in the conversation.
Right. You care about what I am passionate about.
Yes.
Just like I care about what you're into. Big Brother, for instance.
Recently, yes.
I sit there and ask you questions, see what's going on the show. It's kind of interesting. But it kind of went full circle because I went through all this shit and then I'm back where I was. I feel like I've reclaimed myself. And then I met the man himself. And so it's just all invigorating. It's like a new part of my life, with you and everything. So again, that's a whole different podcast than what we are. Let's move on to our next topic. We can't talk about Joe Bob and the Last Drive-In without mentioning Darcy.
Of course.
Right. And Darcy... Yeah, I'll admit I don't know a ton about her from other than where I recognized her from.
Is she open about that?
Yeah, she's an advocate for free speech and anti-censorship, and she even hosted the webcast Geek Rock, RAWK if you want to look that up. She hosted that topless at one point to demonstrate her belief in the female nudity should be a non-issue. But, she's done porn. And honestly, I don't see a problem with it. I've never seen a problem with that. But I remember...
obviously. I would hope not.
Obviously. But, so, we were watching the last draw, one of the marathons we were sitting through. And I was like, man, I have seen her before. Because... I had recognized her. I was like, I've seen her somewhere in something. She's in something.
Right.
And so I started looking it up. I was like, oh, okay. I've seen that. I've seen that multiple times. Okay, that's why. That's where I've seen her. So I was just as nervous to meet her as Sorry.
Oh, that's terrible.
But no. So that's where I recognized her. But she's been in some low-budget horror movies and stuff like that.
We were watching something the other day.
And she popped up.
Like, she's just there.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But she goes by Diana Prince, and I believe one of her stage names was Casey Poteet. But Diana Prince now, and Darcy the Mail Girl on the show. Now, on the first drive-in marathon, she was very shy, and you could tell because she barely talks through some of that.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I could tell what was wrong because she has maybe she has like this severe like social anxiety thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could tell that because that's kind of what I have. Ooh, I hit my mic. But so I could tell that. So I was like, oh, well, this is kind of neat. And so it's really been awesome to watch her from that first marathon until now, where she's really breaking out. She's fucking, I don't know how she does this, but she tweets at a lightning pace.
Oh, I know.
And she responds to everybody. She takes where she hasn't been able to respond because they've been touring and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She takes like the next days to sit there and tweet you back.
Oh,
send
yeah.
you stuff.
So somehow my Twitter got set to where I only got notifications from her and from Joe Bob.
Really?
So one day I had left my phone at my desk because it was like earlier this week or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I left my desk and I left my phone there. It was on charger and I came back and I had like 32 tweets. She didn't tweet me 32 times. I just had 32 notifications that she was tweeting. And I was like, motherfucker, what happened to my damn Twitter? Because first of all, I don't Twitter that much.
Yeah, you're definitely not the social media person in all this. I think that's more on my side.
Yeah. I mean, I'll look at it, but I get lost.
Twitter person.
Well,
That's
I just get lost because the conversations confuse me, and then there's sub-conversations.
They move fast.
It's
you
too
gotta
fast
keep up.
for my small brain.
But not... I'm just going to throw Darcy, but not her.
No, she's super fast.
And it's great. And she brought an even more connection to the show because, like I said, I never thought I was going to meet Joe Bob.
Right.
And let alone sit there and tweet with the mail girl. Like, be connected to the show. And that, in turn, her and Joe Bob coming back, that in turn brought all these people out of the woodwork that some of us grew up with Joe Bob. Some people are new and are just discovering this and really enjoying it. But I didn't know there was anybody else out there. That's the fucked up part. It was one of those things where I grew up knowing about it and I didn't know anyone else liked it.
Right.
So it was kind of cool to know that there was all these other people being influenced and loving it and stuff like that. And that leads us to our next topic, the MutantFam, which, my God, there are so many nice people out there.
Oh, yeah.
All of them are great. And shit, all of them have been so supportive of the show, which has been amazing. There is now little, like, I don't know what you call them, a sub Joe Bob thing is going on. There's fucking, let me just read off a few here. There is Mutant Cafe, run by Daddy Man, who's awesome. At Middle Brian, if you want to look that up, and at Cafe Mutant on Twitter. Mutant Cafe, where he does cooking shows every Friday, centered around a different horror movie.
We like cooking shows.
Yeah, and those are awesome because he has some great ass recipes. That banana pudding recipe. Then you got Tom Denton, who became the official artist of the Joe Bob Briggs website. And he's a great artist, by the way. I love his stuff.
Does he do the fanzine?
Yes, he does the front cover.
The fanzine, yeah.
Yeah. Then you have, of course, super friend of the show, Laura Beerman.
Oh, yeah.
Who is the gratuitous blogger. She blogs on there and on Diabolic Magazine. 25 years later, you can find her on Creepy Lovely. And she now has a new podcast that we will talk about on the interview. Dear Final Girl, which is an awesome podcast.
I like that name.
Yeah, it's good. You should listen to it. It has some really good stuff. It's more, I think on the interview, I said something about like, it's kind of a nice spiritual sequel to our show because it's like you go from all these dick jokes and us yucking it up into some kind of deep thought about these movies.
Oh, yeah.
But then you have, obviously, I can't go anywhere without mentioning the Joe Bob Briggs fanzine, which I'm a huge fan of because I love fanzines. I don't know if you know what a fanzine is. Do you?
A magazine made by fans.
Yeah. It's a dumb question.
It's in the title.
Well, fanzines used to be big in the 70s and stuff because you couldn't get a hold of Fangoria in all places and stuff like that. So people sometimes at colleges and stuff would sit around and print up these magazines.
Oh, yeah.
I have one that looks like an old traditional fanzine. Mm-hmm. It's printed on like a blue pieces of paper and stuff and all just stapled together.
Yeah.
That's what that is. And oh man, the Joe Bob Briggs fanzine is beautiful to look at. It is full color. The front, it's got artwork from people. We got articles from some amazing writers. And, we were in the back of it recently.
Yes.
And so, and then obviously another shout out, and I can't, again, we don't have 8 hours, so I can't read everybody. I'm sorry. A shout out to the folks who put together Mutant Theater. When Joe Bob has been off the air, Mutant Theater gets together and does group watches of movies, kind of like what we do when we watch the last Drive-In, and we all tweet each other and talk about the movie and stuff. And that's been amazing. They've been keeping the torch lit. So it's like Joe Bob came back and brought an army with him, like he said. He brought us all together again, and I think a lot of us fans and stuff, we needed that. Fuck, this world sucks. It really does. It's our government's a piece of shit. People overseas, you have no idea how dumb everybody is over here. But anyway,
we're fucking stupid,
right? And so it's nice. It's like there's something to get your mind off of things again, and that's one of the reasons we started the show. Because I mean, our show is influenced by Joe Bob,
for sure.
A big part of it. Some of it's some stuff I've been cooking up for years, but if it wasn't for Joe Bob coming back, I don't think I would have ever got up off my ass and started creating again. I used to be very creative a long time ago. So That pretty much wraps it up because like I said, I could start a whole podcast just talking about him. But that's such a review. How are you doing so far riding along on this weird ass journey?
It's okay. Some days it's a little
because you're dealing with a Joe Bob fan and you're dealing with a hardcore horror fan at the same time.
So this is why I have to throw myself into like Big Brother, or I have to throw myself into Disney Plus now that we have it and stuff, is because this is not my stuff.
Right.
This is just not, it's not that I don't like it. Some of the movies I love, some of the movies I hate. And
Brittany doesn't get in. What she's trying to say is she doesn't, not that she hates us.
Right.
She's trying, she doesn't get into them as much as I do. She watches movies on a offhand. You're more of a TV person.
Yes.
Like you were obsessed there for a while until it started really sucking ass. Walking Dead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, obsessed about that. And I think you'd probably be more apt to watch horror shows and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, you're a horror fan, just not as big as me.
Right.
Like, because we talked and I was like, I literally watch horror all day long.
Right. And that's fine, but I'd rather, I don't know.
Space out the whole.
Yes, I'd rather space out.
Okay.
I'd rather not have to think about what I'm watching. And that's okay.
But I mean, that's what makes our show work. Is because if we had two horror obsessed people, we'd just be talking about the movie. I don't know. It just wouldn't be funny.
Right.
I feel like us sitting here, if like we were straight, like, so then in Halloween, when it was, and John Carpenter's outlook on this was a high art feeling of amazingness, and it's so beautiful. The shots
it was
at night,
artisanal.
Artisanal. An artisanal movie.
Artisanal movie. Anyway.
But it'd be like that. We'd just be going back and forth. And so we'd just be, it would be boring. It would be your normal movie review podcast, which not saying y'all are boring. It's just, that's not us. I wanted something different. But you seem to really enjoy the horror movies.
Some of them.
Yeah, some of them. Which is fine. And don't lie. Like, that's the worst part you can do. Especially you people on Twitter. I know not all of you like certain movies and you're just saying it. I can see it.
It's okay to like your own
Yeah,
things.
it's okay not to like another movie.
It's okay not to like things.
I didn't like our Thanksgiving episode coming.
And you're the one that's...
I didn't. Our viewers, or our listeners chose it. It was on a poll. They all voted for it. So you blame the listeners. Not really. We love you all. But so.
But what if I love it and you hate it? That'd be hilarious.
It would be, actually. But so right now, what I'd like to do before we go into the Laura Beerman interview.
Okay.
We got to induct you.
Oh, God. Do I have to drink cow's blood?
Yes. No. All right. Bring in the newborn, baby.
I don't want to sacrifice a goat.
Would you like to live deliciously? We got to bring Black Phillip in here and he's going to sign a book. No. I mean, I keep saying mutant fans, and I don't know if you know that where that comes from.
No.
Drive-In Mutants. We enjoy the trashy movies and the movies that are fun and full of blood and just disgusting, and there's nudity flopping all around.
Oh, we love flopping nudity.
Exactly, and you seem to love that, so I think this is a perfect time to induct you.
How do I get inducted?
We're about to. You're going to take the drive-in oath.
Oh, shit.
And this is Joe Bob's creation back in like the 80s.
Oh, shit. Do I need to raise my right hand?
Yep. In fact, that is the thing. You raise your right hand and you're going to repeat after me. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Your face right now, you're like, what is happening?
Okay. Happening.
Oh, okay. All right.
You have the wrong hand raised.
I got my left hand. Oh, shit. And I haven't been drinking. All right. You ready?
Yes.
Let's try this again.
I was looking and I was like, I can see your wedding ring. I was like, oh, that's your left hand.
Oopsie. Moving on. Okay, you got your right hand raised. The blood is rushing to your elbow. So repeat after me and we'll try to get through this. You ready?
Yes.
All right, we are Drive-In Mutants.
We are Drive-In Mutants.
We are not like other people.
We are not like other people.
We are sick.
We are sick.
We are disgusting.
We are disgusting.
We believe in blood and breasts and in beasts.
We believe in blood, in breasts, and in beasts.
That's the 3 B's. If life had a vomit meter, we'd be off the scale.
If life had a vomit meter, we'd be off the scale.
She's really raising her hand for this, people. As long as one drive-in remains.
As long as one drive-in remains.
On the planet Earth.
On the planet Earth.
We will party like jungle animals.
We will party like jungle animals.
We will boogie till we puke.
We will boogie till we puke.
The drive-in will never die.
The drive-in will never die.
Yay! One of us. Google gobble. One of us.
I don't need to show my boobs or anything now, do I?
Yes, you have to show your boobs to me. It's part of it's the requisite.
You have a picture in there.
You got to. You
have a picture in your phone. You can see them from there.
That's true. I have multiple pictures in my phone. I probably shouldn't tell people that because I'm going to be like, can I see your Joe Bob picture? Ha, boobs! I got a funny story about that before we get out of here. On my phone, I had pictures that I had sent you of my junk. Mm-hmm. And one of my friends was like, can I see the picture you just took? Because I took it on Halloween, and this is a long time ago. And he scrolled by. He's like, oh, God, it's your dick. He threw the phone at me.
Oh, you told me about that.
Anyway, so I to get you familiar with a little bit, we're gonna drop off with a little total of our Motel Hell movie. Joe Bob did the totals for back in the Monster Vision times. You can read them. In fact, I had to. So Brittany is going to read the drive-in totals of Motel Hell.
Okay. 10 dead bodies, 3 motor vehicle chases, S&M, B&D, LMNOP.
It's a
flesh eating, dueling chainsaws, strangulation, gratuitous Wolfman Jack, best performance by a man wearing a pig head, 4 stars. Check it out.
Yep. So, man. So again, do you kind of get why I'm obsessed and why he's an influence now?
Yes.
Because it's not just the movies; it's everything together. It's the man himself, John Bloom. Man, that's all I got to say. That's all I got to say about that.
I thought you liked Sling Blade.
I do. You know, I can't do a Forrest Gump very well, but I can do a Sling Blade. Can you do a Forrest? Can you?
I love you, Jenny.
See, I love you, I can't do.
Life is like a box of chocolates. Wait, that wasn't right.
Some people call it a Kaiser blade. I call it a Sling Blade. Mm-hmm.
He doesn't talk that fast, though.
No, yeah. And talk a little slower like this.
By the way, Joe Bob's like 700 feet tall.
Oh, yeah. He dwarfs you.
Well.
Because you're like 5'2" or something.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, meeting them were great. They were nice people. Mm-hmm. That was a relief. I've met a few celebrities in my life. I met Kid Rock. And then I got told to fuck off by someone I swear was Billy Idol. At a hotel. It was a dude, and he had the spiky hair, and he was all old and stuff, and it looked just like Billy. This is in Dallas, so he may have been there. And I swear it was Billy Idol. So we were out by the pool, and I'm a fat kid, and so I'm like, Billy Idol, Billy Idol, Billy Idol, and this dude just turns around that I'm yelling at, and he goes, "Fuck off," and just walks.
It's not Billy Idol.
No, I don't think it was, unless Billy Idol was putting on an American accent. But, I met Kid Rock buying a Miller Tallboy at a bike festival one time. That was cool. I was like, "Are you Kid Rock?" And he was like, "Yeah." So that was like, that was it, because I was like, I froze after that. It is Kid Rock. He didn't tell me to fuck off. But,
he didn't tell me to fuck off.
So Joe Bob was the third celebrity, and that was an amazing interaction. He was exactly how I thought he would be. He was as tall as I thought he would be.
Really? Yeah. I thought he was a giant.
Well, I obsessed over reading about him, so I knew he's like 6'4", 6'2".
Yeah.
So anyway, that's our tribute to the man I can't do much else unless I take up like 9 hours of your time.
And nobody wants to hear that.
And nobody wants to hear me gush about
I've heard it
me
for
fanboying.
the past. It's been a week now.
But what I'd like to leave you with is just a thank you. If the guy is listening, that would be amazing. I'd like to tell him thanks. Thanks for being such an inspiration, for showing me that these movies have value. They're not something you need to write off. And it's cool to be a fucking mutant. And the drive-in will indeed never die, hopefully. Our drive-in almost burnt down.
No, it did burn down.
It did burn down.
Somebody
rebuilt it.
The drive-in down.
Every time I plan to go to our drive-in, though, they're only showing animated films, and I'm like, I want to see.
They don't show anything that's not mainstream.
That sucks. I don't want to go see Marvel at the drive-in.
Yeah.
That's not where you go. Did you ever get lucky at a drive-in?
No.
No?
No, I only went with my parents or my friends' parents or my friends.
This is my make-out.
When I was older.
This is our make-out session. So we're ending this because my wife is looking at me with daggers. And, but yeah. Thank you, Joe Bob. Thank you, Darcy. Thanks everybody involved in that show. John Brennan, dear God, he's the nicest guy alive. He let us use one of his songs for our show. He's performing in New York City and people are going and I'm jelly. But hopefully all you guys make it through Tulsa and I will buy you a drink. Maybe not a bottle. That was for Joe Bob.
Joe Bob gets a bottle.
Yeah.
You guys get a shot.
But we'll buy
or two.
But we will buy you a drink if you come through. You just gotta let us know. And maybe, as long as we got babysitters, because we have 4 children. But you know what? Enjoy this interview coming up. I'm sorry you didn't get to sit in on this.
I wasn't feeling well that day.
Yeah, and I'm still working on getting it. Because anyway, nobody wants to hear about the behind the scenes. But hopefully you guys enjoy this interview with Laura Beerman that's coming up. It was great. I had a great time. Thank you to Laura Beerman. Thanks everybody out there who keeps listening.
Thank you, everyone.
Right. So enjoy the interview. So today we are talking to Laura Beerman, who is the gratuitous blogger on the joebobbriggs.net website. How did we meet?
I don't even know. I think we just, there's certain people on Twitter who stand out to one another and then you get connected. And then I remember asking you for some insights for my my ode to the guys in the black t-shirts. And I think it went from there. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Night of the Horrophile.
Oh.
I mean, I just think you guys are doing something really special and I love it. And you can never go away because there'd be a big hole in my week if you did.
Well, definitely. And thank you. We love horror on here. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you was when did you first decide that horror was your genre? I mean, probably not genre of choice. I think we all love all the genres. But what set you on the path of horror?
Very good question. Other than just life itself, which always inspires, I think, life events can inspire one toward weird, strange things in an effort to understand, kind of like growing up and life experiences that don't always make sense. But that's not always true. But I feel like that's part of the driver for me, and I'm really glad it drove me toward horror and not like rom-coms or something. But
right.
that may be the one genre that I actually don't really care for. But yeah,
it's definitely the one I don't.
Oh, go ahead, Leigh. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. It's definitely the one I kind of stray away from a little bit. But Brittany's got me out of my shell on that one.
Well, so you asked me what age. Like for some reason, the first age that pops into my mind is age 6.
Mm-hmm.
And why I say that is because my grandmother, when I was growing up, we, went to visit her fairly regularly. And she had on her shelves all of these comic books. And she had Archie, and I loved Archie. And she also had these horror comics. She had like Ghost Manor, Tales from the Crypt. And I would read those like every single time. Like I can still see the covers of all of those comics. And there was one in particular, and it was, oh gosh, it was either an Erie publication or an EC publication called Horror Tales. And it was the November 1970 issue. And it was absolutely horrifying. And it was something I completely should not have been reading. And I don't even know if she knew she had that on her shelf. But I'm so glad that I did. And actually, I actually own that comic now.
Really?
I found it on eBay and I bought it. So I'll have to take some pictures and send them to you as part of the, as part of our discussion.
Yeah. That's kind of relates to me a little bit because my dad used to collect all those Tales from the Crypt and Horror Tales and Creepy and all the EC comics.
Those are the best. They're the best. And they're so, I think what they did is they actually were rerunning a lot of comics that had originally appeared maybe in the 50s or something, because they're so, the storylines and the relationships between men and women, it all just seems like it's straight out of the 50s.
Oh yeah.
But it was captivating, absolutely captivating.
So when you're captivated by horror like that, like, do you find yourself naturally gravitating towards the films after the print, or was it a more of kind of a fuzzy kind of transition from comics to movies?
Probably fuzzy, just because I didn't really have access to movies until I was older. I would say, like, I have two other specific memories that had to have just, to quote Adam Sandler and The Waterboy, were part of my tackling fuel when it comes to loving horror.
Right.
So one was, I remember when I was about 5, The Creature from the Black Lagoon was on television. And the interesting thing about it was it not only scared me, but it scared me because I felt like I had a memory of it. Like maybe I had actually seen that movie when I was younger, because I remember when it came on thinking like, oh God, not this. It's that thing again. And I was really scared. And I had adults around me, not very responsible adults, who were also trying to scare the shit out of me while I was watching this movie. So there you go.
That happens.
And the other thing, but thank God for those people, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because they are part of why we are like who we are today. The other thing I remember is I was probably about 6 years old, and my bedroom was right off the kitchen. And we had a small TV in the kitchen, and my sister was watching, I did not know it at the time, but she was watching the movie When a Stranger Calls. And so I'm 6 years old, I'm lying in my bed in the dark, and I'm just hearing the audio of this film. And I remember specifically hearing the line, "The calls are coming from inside the house." And it scared the absolute shit out of me. And I swear from that point on, the entire time I was growing up, even through my teenage years, whenever the phone rang in our house, I still thought there was some remote possibility that there was some separate phone and some separate line that I did not know about, and that call was coming from inside the house. So, I mean, I think, pretty young, some powerful some powerful experiences. And then I think before I got into movies, like Stephen King was my gateway drug.
Oh, yeah.
I was reading Stephen King when I was like 11, and I'm sure a lot of us I bet that was true for a lot of us. There's something about adolescence and horror that just kind of goes hand in hand,
Right. And a lot of King's work is kind of dwells in that realm of adolescence and coming of age, and kind of those kind of heartfelt horror stories is what he's best at.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, speaking about writing with Stephen King and stuff, most of us who hang around with the horror genre and stuff are kind of outcast, and we kind of do. Well, I mean, I don't want to say like straight up outcast, but like we tend to do more artwork and like more creative things, or that we turn to writing, as you seem to have. Was writing always your main ambition?
I don't know that it was. I mean, yes and no. I think it took me a number of years to think that is something that I could do for either a living or just that I could decide to do and put it out in the world. But I've always loved writing. I was an English major in college, and but also I think about people like Stephen King, who they talk about like, I was like writing these short stories when I was 8 years old. I definitely was not doing that. Like, I was a tomboy. Like, I was out playing football, with like all the other boys in the neighborhood because there were no other girls than me. But like, I did start writing a little bit in high school, and of course, just being in college, you're writing a lot of papers. But I did like that sort of academic style. I think it kind of set kind of cast the die for what I enjoy reading most, or writing most today, which is like the essays and articles that I do. And just wrote off and on over the years. It was not a consistent practice like it is today until, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago. I would go through spurts where I would really write a lot, and then I'd stop altogether and not write for years.
Right.
And then it was really about 2 years ago that I was like, okay, I want to go deeper into horror. I've always wanted to write about it. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And that's what started me off really on the path that I'm on today. Whatever that path may be, I'm on something, and that was a big part of it.
Right. And because you have written professionally for more than 2 decades, primarily in healthcare though.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What started you down the healthcare route?
Well, I worked for an ad agency back in from 2001 to 2006. Our primary clients were healthcare, like health systems and just healthcare related clients. And I just kind of got this bug. Like, I found the industry, it's so dysfunctional. I guess I found it fascinating as to how it all works. And so I really wrote professionally in the healthcare industry, like you said, for almost 20 years. And I'm still in healthcare. But my day job does not involve really writing anymore. And I kind of think that's why I'm doing so much personally, right, and of my own projects now, because I don't do it at work, and I finally learned to balance like the work stuff and the stuff that I want to do on the side and invest in it, just like what you've said with and we were talking recently, and you were talking about how Joe Bob has inspired you in part to right. start the podcast.
Because like, it seems like if your day job includes what your passions are, it seems like it can get monotonous. And so your side little passion projects fall by the wayside because your work life is that. So it seems like that's not a very good balance. So it does seem like people excel more with their passion projects when it's not their day job. And if they do end up making money with that, that's just an added bonus.
Exactly. And I think that part of it, I may have lost my train of thought. I have often tried to think more deeply about like, well, why healthcare? And, it could, I have often wondered if it wasn't because of, both of my parents, they did not die at the same time. They died a couple of years apart, but they died when I was in my late teens. And my mother had lung cancer, so she had a period of illness. And, even being that age, you're in that environment and you're in hospitals, and I'm hearing my older siblings and other family members talk about things about healthcare. My dad he had a stroke, about a year after my mom died. And sometimes I wonder if that's not part of it. If it wasn't like, well, I was kind of exposed at a pretty early age to this whole healthcare system and like what works and what doesn't work and what it, how much it actually helps people. And so that there may be part of that in there too.
Yeah, I could see that. My mom has gone through her own share of health problems, so I could see why being exposed to all that would influence your career choice, really. Do you feel like, because, okay, honestly, talking to you through Twitter and on the phone, I think once, but it seems like you're kind of a booster. Like you aim to help people. Do you think that has a part of it?
I think so too. And it really means a lot to me that you say that, because I really didn't have any sense of how much that comes across. I think people know, and I've through Twitter, I've just made some great friends like you and Brittany. I want to give a shout out to Robin, Justin. The whole Mutant Theater group. There's so many people, and I do think that it comes through I want it to in what I do on social media. But also I find that I have settled into this writing style.
Right.
Other than probably even in the Joe Bob blog, they're sort of their own kind of animal, which is very fun. It's very fun. I even try to work things in there, but in my other like essays and articles, I feel like it's part film discussion, part a little bit of personal memoir, and then part wanting to support MutantFam, horror community. It means a lot to me that you said that, because that is part of what I'm going for.
Yeah, because honestly, in a sea of negative out there on the social media sites and the internet, it's nice to have a positive. And we tend to do that here with our show. We don't bring up movies we don't like and just badmouth them the entire time. We try to, even if it is a movie I don't like, I'll sit there and point out the positives and stuff. And, I've noticed as a whole, the MutantFam is very positive. There's always a bad egg here and there, but, that gets weeded out.
I completely agree, Lee. It's extremely positive. And I will tell you that even when I started the Joe Bob blog, I prepared myself for potential trolls, right? Mm-hmm. I prepared myself for people who might come out of the woodwork and just because of what I was doing might be like, you suck, eat shit and die. Like I was just like, it's gonna happen. It has not happened. That has not happened at all. And I'll be honest with you, I think there was maybe one interaction on Twitter where you might have even seen it or responded. And somebody was getting, in terms of negativity, it was like the Diet Coke of negativity. It was not that. it's kind of, it's skewed negative.
Right.
And a part of me, like, I almost delight in it, Leigh, because I'm like, number one, this person is how interesting that they're choosing to express, of all of the millions of ways that a person can choose to express themselves, this person is choosing to express themselves in this very specific way, which is a bit provoking. And the other part of my delight is just like, there is not one damn thing that you can do to hurt me.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing,
right.
There is nothing that you can say that is going to like disturb my peace. It's just not, because I just have a broader perspective than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you kind of have to. Yeah, I mean, to be on social media at all, you kind of have to have a thick skin. I think I remember what you're talking about, and it was pretty tame. It was more of an actually kind of interaction.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I even did an actually on somebody, but it wasn't like mean spirited. And then, they ended up schooling me on something else. So good for them. I like to learn different stuff too. So.
And I have noticed that, like, most of these people, they're all great, even the ones that have been negative. It seems like the way if we were in, like, a natural setting, just sitting down having a cup of coffee, they probably wouldn't be as mean-spirited about things. It would probably be a nice little conversation, but something about social media gives people that blanket.
I agree. And I think, it's the same with email at work. I think that, like one of my favorite artists over the years has been Roger Waters, who was the former frontman of Pink Floyd. And I'm like one of those weird people who actually followed him throughout his solo career and all these just weird, great conceptual albums that he does. But there's this one song that he has called The Bravery of Being Out of Range.
Yes.
And I think that says a lot about social media. It's like, it's just, what's somebody going to do to you? You just have, like, people feel like they have carte blanche to just say whatever, because there are no real, I don't know. Or do you think there are any kind of real repercussions other than somebody blocking you or people chiming in and going, "Hey, jerk, stop acting that way"?
I mean, unless you're putting your address out there, I don't think there really is.
Right.
And I think that's what some people have to remember, is not to live in social media. Choose who you reveal information to. But speaking about the Mutant Fam, I love asking people how they discovered Joe Bob. It's one of the things that's been uniting us all on Twitter recently.
Yeah.
So how did you discover Joe Bob?
It wasn't until Monster Vision. Like, I did not know about him when he had his earlier show on the movie channel. And I should know this, but his particular, when he made Monster Vision what it is, that was like, what, 90, what were the years? I can't even remember. Do you remember?
Slightly, because honestly, Monster Vision, it was flip-flop with its schedule. It was on a Friday, then it'd be on a Saturday, then it'd be on Friday night, and Saturday midday. It was weird. But I think it was 96, I want to say.
Yeah, like 96 through maybe 2000
right.
or something like that. So I think, I just discovered him on TNT. And there are so many people who are in MutantFam who have a much deeper knowledge of Joe Bob from the Monster Vision days than I do. But I definitely remember discovering him when he was on Monster Vision. And the one episode that I just remember in particular was when he did Exorcist 2. And he talked about how the filmmakers were influenced by this, like, French philosopher named Pierre Teilhard du Chardin.
Right.
And he ranted about that the whole movie, and it reminded me so much of in the recent Hootenanny when he was going on and on about the director of Halloween 5, the Dominique whatever guy.
Yes.
I was just like, oh God, this is so reminding me of Exorcist 2. But but I did not follow him over the years. I mean, he's written amazing books. He wrote a book in, I think, 2016. This is like, the man behind Joe Bob, John Bloom, wrote a nonfiction book in 2016 called Eccentric Orbits. And it was all about like Motorola's attempt to essentially dominate the satellite phone industry and kind of how it fell apart. And I mean, it was like, it was either Fortune or Wall Street Journal named it one of the top 10 books of 2016. I mean, the man is a Renaissance man.
Oh, yeah.
He absolutely is. And then, of course, yay, Shudder for bringing him back. And Justin, Martell, and Austin, who, were instrumental in bringing him back on the air where he belongs.
Oh, man, I know. That when I was younger, I discovered Joe Bob on Monster Vision as well, because my family, my family didn't even have cable until I was like 18. So it was mostly going to friends' houses, like sneaking away and going over there. But I think it ran till about 2000, like you said. And after that, it was mostly just every once in a while I'd catch one of his writings online somewhere. Yeah. And it was odd because he kind of went away for a while. And that was because, like, I remember sitting there in front of the TV while he was talking about it. The episodes I remember were, oh man, it's fuzzy because I was so young. I probably shouldn't have been watching it, but it was Maximum Overdrive was one of them. And then,
oh yes, yeah. And you guys had a great podcast on Maximum Overdrive. Oh, yeah. It was awesome.
And then the other one was the Friday the 13th marathon, where he lost his shit in the middle of it because I didn't. History repeats itself. That. Oh my God, that Hootenanny when he just went like weapons grade rant. I was like, this is so funny. This is the best. Like, and it was funny because when Darcy reacted, I remember thinking like, oh God, like was this planned or scripted? And she said on Twitter that like, no, that was not, like, he kind of just went nuts. Mm-hmm. And something about like Halloween kind of like fucking him up as a holiday or something. He always, every Halloween he does something like that.
Oh my God. I love it.
But yeah, I mean, he was kind of I don't know to everyone else, but he was kind of a tutor to me. So that's where I first learned that there are these other films besides slasher movies that I need to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also tell you that before I started writing for him and his website, I had already started with my other horror film related essays. And, through them, I was writing about stuff I'd been thinking about for years. And it was kind of tapping into just some memories and some thought processes, and, can get kind of heavy sometimes. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I can't write this shit all the time. Like, yeah. And it was about that time, I think, that he came back on the air. Hopefully you can edit out my cat who is meowing in the background. I don't know if you can even hear her, but
it's fine.
Wants to come out really bad. But I remember thinking, like, I love doing this. This is the kind of writing I've been wanting to do, but I can't do this all the time. It kind of takes a lot out of me. Right. And then, I started doing the Joe Bob, and it's like, it brings balance to my world, because I love both kinds of writing. Like, I love writing under his brand because I feel like I can use it and I can express those parts of myself that are like Joe Bob. And it's a lot of fun. And then I can do my other stuff too.
Right. And that's one thing that I love about him. Because I mean, our show is obviously a no holds bar kind of thing. Like we
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It follows his kind of teaching to where there's no safe spaces. So
yeah.
And I feel
I personally like that.
Right. And I feel like his site, like your writings and stuff, it's almost like the last frontier of that. We live in a society where things are really shut down if they displease people. And I don't know, growing up with shock jocks and Joe Bob and stuff like that, I guess it's hard for me to suppress that. Do you feel like in your normal writing, it's kind of, because you're not, like I said, you're a positive person, but you're not necessarily a hold back things kind of person. So is it hard to suppress that kind of non-offensive?
Well, I guess I don't suppress it is the thing, you know, and I'm like you know, that's all right. I don't want to piss people off, and I don't want to set up any comparisons of, like, you know, generational comparisons, age comparisons, different levels of sensitivity. I mean, you know, things have been, you know, there's a lot of gender and sexuality things that have been fucked up in our society for a very long time, you know, and we're finally getting to this point where even though there's still all kinds of problems. There's violence. There's terrible, terrible things. It is better. I think there is less overt phobia and sexism in film. I don't know. You know, somebody's going to take me to task for this for sure. I mean, I'm not saying we live in, you know, kumbaya world or anything, but I just, you know, I grew up in a certain time period. You know, I was a child in the late 70s and in the 80s, which was just like the kind of heyday of horror and the slasher picks. Also the heyday of just, you know, just unapologetic sexism, homophobia. Yeah. When you grow up with that, you have to deal with it. And I don't mean that you have to accept it, but you're exposed to it, and anything that you're exposed to, you can learn to navigate it. And I think, you know, I think it just, that's why I feel like I can take most things like that with a grain of salt. And why, like, I even go there sometimes, especially with the Joe Bob stuff. I'm not meaning to be sexist, especially as a woman. But I mean, I like writing about balls and boobs, and it doesn't bother me. It's fun, you know, it's just fun. I mean, you can't be a horror fan, especially of 70s and 80s, and be like, not be okay with, you know, tits and blood and all that, all that stuff, you know. So yeah, that's a long answer, but that's,
and honestly, it's possible to write and say those things without being offensive. I think some people forget that there's a line between offensive and just talking. I
think you're exactly right.
Because like on our show, like if we sat there and cleaned up everything, and I think I had, because you've been like a unofficial kind of, I bounce ideas off of you for our show like all the time.
I love it. It's so much fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. And well, we appreciate it. But and I remember far back on our what was it? Our Evil Dead episode where I asked you, you know, there's a tree rape joke in our episode. Do you think I should put that out there? And
I'm like, don't hold back, do it. I mean, it's, you know, I feel like I don't even want to say this out loud, but I feel like I want to write. I feel like I have it in me to write some piece that's like, I'm just going to say it. It's like I feel like I have this essay in me, and I just want to call it Tits. And it's about like, you know, tits and horror, breasts for those others of you out there who prefer that term. But also just as a woman, it's sort of like, hey, I own a set of these, so I can talk about them.
Right.
And I can talk, and I mean, look, not only women can do that, right? I mean, and it kind of goes back to the earlier conversation about like people say things that are inappropriate. As like you said, as long as nobody's physical address is out there, then you are safe, you are okay, you can disengage from people who are saying inappropriate things. And you know, I think that's why. That's why, actually, for the Halloween Hootenanny, in addition to my partner in crime, TJ Denton, who does the wonderful art for the blog and more broadly.
Oh, his artwork's beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
We actually have one of them hanging on the wall here, which.
Yeah, I remember seeing that picture. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the other, Ben Nagy, who did the second post of the Hootenanny recap, he and I talked about like, because we had decided ahead of time like who would cover what films, and then it just so happens at the beginning of the second film is like this awesome Lifetime movie segment where Joe Bob talks about like, hey, all those characters I wanted to play, you know, the husband, the boyfriend, the charming stranger, they went away and they were all replaced by psycho bitches.
Yeah.
and it was hilarious. It was because it's true. It's absolutely hilarious. And I told Ben, I said, you know, if there's any discomfort at all around like you being the one to write psycho bitches and not me, you can just say, hey, we decided to break the mold. You know, that traditionally would be that, you know, it needs to be like the female who's writing and talking about this so that it's not threatening or inappropriate. And I said, no, I said, you need to say that, you know, even though, you know, I am a psycho bitch, you know, that we had just decided that you Ben, you know, as a male, were perfectly qualified and okay for you to write that part. So it was kind of funny to talk through that.
And that's equality.
Yes, sir, it is.
So your other passion in the horror genre it seems to be Dario Argento, if I'm not mistaken. I believe, because even with our episode on Suspiria, I had you in mind while I was doing it. I was like, man, she seems like a big fan. I hope this episode goes over well.
It was wonderful. Yeah, it was a great episode. I definitely thought about things that I hadn't thought about before. Dario, like if I think about, he is absolutely huge for me. I mean, absolutely huge. I would say, you know, I relayed some of those early childhood experiences of horror. And I think that, you know, I was really busy in college just trying to frankly physically survive, you know, some pretty difficult circumstances.
Right.
And so I didn't really like kind of pick horror back up until probably like the late 90s. And I remember I walked into a Blockbuster Video. I would always go straight to the horror section. You know, I miss those places, Blockbuster, Hollywood Video. Oh my God. So I go to the horror section, and, you know, the spine of this VHS is turned out, and it's the spine of an early Dario Argento documentary called Dario Argento's World of Horror. And it was made by Michele Soavi, who was in Demons. In Demons, he's the one at the beginning. He's wearing the silver mask.
Oh, yeah.
Who gives the ticket to the Metropole. And actually, Joe Bob talks about him on that original 24-hour marathon that was on Shudder that kicked everything back off. But so he made this documentary. And I mean, on the spine is a little thumbnail picture from Suspiria, the scene where Pat is like hanging by a noose with blood around her neck because she's been pursued by this witch's coven.
Yeah.
And she's been pushed through this stained glass window and like hung up by a rope. And like that was the picture on the side. And I'm like, what in the hell is this? And I turn it over and I read it, and that was a huge part of what set me on the path that I'm on today. I just fell in love with particularly his earlier work, his particular way of his cinematography. It's really gory and disturbing, but it's also extremely beautiful.
Right.
And I had just never seen anyone put those things together like that.
Right. Even his choice of how to use like stage blood instead of the fake blood that was around at the time. It's just, it puts that artistic style to it. That's something else.
It really is. It really is. And so he's, of all of the Italian horror directors, he's definitely my favorite, but that set me on a path of things in a store called Media Play that, oddly and inexplicably had this decent selection of Argento and other Italian horror like Lucio Fulci. Wow. This was like in the early 2000s. It was somewhere between 99 and 2003. That was when Anchor Bay was the company that was putting out those films that probably a lot of people in the U.S. had never seen before.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Anchor Bay was... whoa. Dogs.
Hey, puppy.
Yeah, I have dogs. You have cats, I believe. Guys, calm it down. Anyway, Anchor Bay was, oh man, they were so important at the time. Around that time, like 99 to 2000 something, they were super important to me because that's where I first started finding out about Italian horror, like Zombie and stuff like it, and Suspiria and stuff like that. It's just, it's weird because I know a lot of horror lovers probably can't think of a generation to where all this stuff wasn't readily available on streaming and eBay and stuff like that. But I remember there were movies that if you didn't live in a certain country, you didn't see those.
That's right. And, there's actually a movie that's difficult to get even to this day, which is a movie called The Devils. I think it's from 1971. It's got Oliver Reed, Vanessa Redgrave. And it takes place largely in like a convent or a monastery. Yes. And there's all kinds of like screwed up, like religious sexual stuff.
Oh yeah.
I've never seen it actually. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but, from what somebody told me that there's a Criterion channel somewhere.
Oh,
I don't know, but okay. I got to find it because I've been seeing little posts about it in murmurs, but apparently they have that movie on there now.
Okay, well, I'm like immediately after this conversation, I'm going to.
Exactly. Because
we can't even brag anymore about like cutting the cable cord because it's just been replaced by like, I subscribe to like a bajillion different individual streaming services now. So they get you one way or the other.
Oh, they sure do. I think we have a bajillion over here, and then I hear of a new one, and I'm like, ooh. And then I wonder why we don't have any money.
That free trial.
Yeah, exactly. And then I wonder why we don't have any money half the time. But
Right. Right. I need a line item for horror just in my budget. Like, exactly. Look, I'm spending it anyway. I might as well account for it.
Yeah. Brittany always glares at me when I order a new movie. Do you still like physical media? Because I know streaming is almost a godsend for some of us horror fans who remember the days of not being able to find things very easily. But do you still get physical media like Blu-rays and DVDs?
I would. I do still love it. My good old trusty dual VHS DVD player burned out finally, the bucket a couple years ago. And I think that's when, I started to get into streaming, so I never replaced it. But so like I am one of those freaks that like loves horror, but I don't even have a player. But I am going to get a Blu-ray player. And the very first film that I'm going to watch, I want to give a shout out to Coop on Twitter, because he had an extra copy of Alien on Blu-ray, and he actually mailed it to me. And so in honor of Coop and that generous gift, it will be the first film I watch when I get my DVD player or my Blu-ray player, which is imminent, by the way. That's like on my list for this week.
That is super generous, because if you haven't seen that on Blu-ray yet, you're in for a treat.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's kind of streaming for me, because I used to collect movies or buy movies all the time, but now streaming's kind of made it to where it's easier for me to pick and choose, and now I just collect out of print DVDs. It's mostly the physical stuff I buy. But
that's cool. What's your like? What are some of your prized possessions in that area?
One of my prized possessions is the I Spit on Your Grave DVD I have, and I can't for the life of me, I can never remember who put that out, but it wasn't very advertised, but Joe Bob has a commentary on the DVD. So
I've got to get that. I've got to get that.
And you can find it if people don't know what they have, because some people will charge you like $80 for this DVD. But then you'll find somebody who knows it's not really worth $80, and they'll charge the $10 price that it's actually worth. But
yeah, those are the ones Brittany doesn't yell at you about too much, probably.
Exactly, the cheaper ones. But so we've talked about your past and stuff, and obviously you're still writing. I know you have articles on. Shoot me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. DiaboliqueMagazine.com, 25yearslater.com, and the newly emerged CreepyLovely.com, which I need to start writing articles for again. I fell in by the wayside.
Yeah, you've got one out. Yeah, I saw your inaugural. I think you've got 2 out there now, right?
Yes, I was trying to do articles for each of the episodes, but that was difficult.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to do it all.
Yeah. So, what are your current projects? I know you have an amazing podcast out called.
That's so stupid of me to say.
I loved it. It's honestly, it's a nice. If you're a fan of this show of Night of the Horrophile, it's kind of a nice little transition, because you got our show, which is all dick jokes and movie facts, and then you have your show, which is more. It's kind of a. I would say, and now I might be getting this wrong, but I would say it's more of a psychological analysis of these movies.
Yeah, I guess so. And the podcast that my friend Tamara and I have, Tamara is also my neighbor, and one of my best friends, and also a fantastic writer. So our podcast is called Dear Final Girl. And I had the idea maybe about 6 months ago, and I want to give another shout out to Val Thompson, on Twitter, Val M. Thompson. She and I first started talking when she was a part of 25 Years Later. She was the first one that I shared this whole Dear Final Girl idea with, and she loved it immediately, and I felt very encouraged by that. And then I needed somebody, I needed another person to be accountable to make it happen. Right. And that's when I approached Tamara. And so what the goal was kind of we want to be like the Dear Abbeys of horror. So we are soliciting emails from people, direct messages on Twitter. Like I kind of think in general we horror folk are sort of an anxious bunch. We're a lot of us are loners. We've got a lot of stuff going on up in our heads.
Oh, definitely.
And it's good if anybody, feels comfortable enough to reach out to us. Then we're taking people's letters and basically, some situation that's going on in your life, some problem you're having, something you just want to get off your chest. People can, of course, if you reach out to us, we're going to know who you are. But if you want to be anonymous or sort of make up a name, because people do that, and what we have so far, just make up kind of a pen name, so that you can keep your situation private, yet still have the benefit, of our discussion if you want that. And so then we, when we get the letters, we think, well, like what horror movie does this remind us of? And like what lessons are in this horror movie, whether the plot, the character, the situations that we could use to then talk through whatever, problem, concern, a person has approached us with. And I mean, we definitely still try to have fun with it. We don't want it to be too heavy. There will still be like dick and boob jokes, primarily coming from me, on the on the episodes. But yeah, Dear Final Girl, and it's on Twitter at Final Dear is our handle. We just kicked off our first episode last Friday covering the movie Scream, and also we chose that in response to a couple of letters. One that was around grief, the loss of a parent, and then another around like, hey, I've got this kind of skeevy boyfriend and, I broke up with him and, I'm trying to learn how to trust people. So that was episode 1, and we're so busy. Like, I wish we could commit to a weekly episode, like what you guys do, but it's probably going to be every other week that we drop it.
It is super hard to commit to the weekly episode. But so do you guys, so it's going to be like maybe a once a month kind of?
I think we're going to shoot for every other week.
Oh, good.
We're going to shoot for twice a month. We've already got, I think, 2 other episodes in the can. And, it's going to be dictated, of course, by the letters that we receive, or just, people sending us stuff. It's going to be dictated by, how well that flows. So I really hope people will write in. And we've approached some of our friends as well. As a matter of fact, Tamara had a writing retreat this past weekend, and we've got some close girlfriends, and we're like, hey, would you guys consider, if there's something on your mind, writing a letter that we can then use as a basis of an episode for the show? So I'm hoping that will happen. But yeah, so I think that the goal is every other week.
Oh, awesome. And where can people send those letters? One more time.
Sure. Yeah, they can send them they can direct message us on Twitter, and we're at Final Dear on Twitter. They can also email us at dearfinalgirl@gmail.com. And again, it can be whatever level of anonymity that people want. If that helps someone feel more comfortable about putting things out there, we are absolutely going to respect that. And, I need to say, I mean, Tamara and we are not licensed professionals, we're just humans trying to help other humans have some fun along the way, talk about horror films and anybody this helps, if it helps anybody, is great. And I think that, our particular audience is horror fans, members of MutantFam, members of horror community. But anybody is welcome to contact us.
That's awesome. And like I said, it's a great show. You guys got a good formula on your hands.
Thank you.
So is there any other future projects you're working on for the joebobbriggs.net website or personal?
Yeah, so for Joe Bob, it's a weekly blog. When the Christmas when the Christmas mini marathon comes out, that's going to be awesome. When the show went on hiatus, we were committed to still doing some sort of weekly content. So that's just like an ongoing weekly thing that I do. Probably the next essay that I have, it's not horror related. There's this fantastic, I will tell anybody who will listen to me to watch this documentary. It is called Jodorowsky's Dune. And it is about Alejandro Jodorowsky, who is, I believe, a Mexican filmmaker, made these really strange, weird, surrealistic films, particularly in the 60s and 70s. And he was slated to actually make the film adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, of course, which David Lynch went on to make it. The project, more work was done to develop that project for it to not come to reality than probably any film ever. And yet its influences are amazing. And the documentary it's not just about the fact that this film didn't get made. It's like how you deal with that, like how you continue on with your creative process.
Right.
How, you have a failure and you go, you know what? Fine. I had a failure, and you move on. It is visually stunning. It is sonically stunning. I just can't recommend it enough. So I'm writing a piece. It's going to take me probably a month, but I'm currently writing a piece about that documentary and about what I see as its major themes.
That's honestly, that sounds amazing. I had no idea about that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's streaming. It is streaming on Amazon. I think if you have Prime, it's free. So it's phenomenal. It's really phenomenal.
That's awesome. Well, honestly, I know you're super busy with all your.
I love talking to you.
But it was great to have you on. I love this. Thanks for being our first guest on here, which I hope we have more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm extremely honored to be your first guest, and it was my pleasure. I love you guys. You guys are great as humans. Your podcast is wonderful, and I'm just super glad to call you guys my friend. And I can't wait to see all the stuff that we keep doing.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Laura. Stay spooky.
Yeah, stay spooky. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Whew, all right. That was a good interview. I was nervous as hell doing it. I was trying not to be Chris Farley. Sitting there like, hey, you remember when you told me about, that was cool, huh? Stupid. But I tried my best. So that was our first interview. Hopefully more to come. Hopefully we can get Joe Bob or Darcy on here. That would be a dream. But they're busy.
I feel like you would die.
Busy. I would be Chris Farley. Hey, Joe Bob, you remember them when he said that thing about whiskey? So cool, right? Nah. Hopefully we can get them on here and talk to them. That would be amazing. I'd like to get more mutants on here and talk to them too.
For sure.
More fans. You don't hear that. You don't hear a lot of interviews with fans, and I'd like to do that on the show, not just horror icons and stuff. But anyway, next week we're hitting a movie that this is the first movie I didn't like.
Oh wow! I
will defend it, but I did not like it. You all know me. I love any movie, even if it's bad, and we will talk about it next week. But that is Thanksgiving, and this is Black Friday. And why did you people vote for this? But Thanksgiving next Friday, which is Black Friday, and So you'll be good and full and hopefully not sitting outside of a fucking Best Buy.
Please don't.
Do people still do that?
Do Cyber Monday like everybody else now.
Do people still die
Yes.
during Black Friday?
Well, they don't die. But they do sit outside for hours. Oh, you know what they do now? They do it on Thursday nights. They started on Thanksgiving night.
Sweet Jesus. Well, if you're sitting out in the cold listening to our voices, I am very sorry. That sounds like hell. Anyway, I'm Lee Evans saying until next week when gobble, gobble, motherfucker is a tagline. Saying stay spooky. Geez, sweet Jesus. Stay spooky.
And this is Brittany. Stay horrific.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love y'all. Thanks for joining us for another awesome episode. If you liked the show, please leave a 5-star review on whatever you listen to podcasts. You can contact us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our website at nightofthehorrophile.com. Our theme song is Barbecue Maniac, written and performed by John Brennan, used with permission. You can find John Brennan at badtechno.com and at bandcamp.com, where you can purchase his albums. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.